Hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Is the music to music to mic? Okay. If it's too soft, let me know. Sounds good. Okay. So let's just get started on stuff. Let me open everything. We might paint a little bit later, maybe if I like decide to take a break or something. But I was gonna start painting right now, but I was like, we can start, do a commission or whatnot, and then take a break or something like that. Hey Gabby, and hi everyone. You might hear Gary in the background. Okay, so this is actually a half body. Oh, there's a lot of characters. Io and Do Ting. Oh, so it's just the two ones on top. Okay, cool. So this will be interesting. First half body that we've done. Hello, hi. Let me get this done. Is my tour box off? Nope, I guess it's not. No, don't do that. I guess it'll just stay that way. Big Bad Baron, thank you for the raid. Never catch you live because the time difference. Don't want to be your voice very loud. I'm glad. I mean, I always like. It's not weird to me. I appreciate when people say that my voice is nice to listen to, because otherwise, like, if it's not nice to listen to, then it's kind of unfortunate. So I'm glad that you find it soothing. That's really kind. So let's start with this one. Maybe I should rotate this. No, I'm probably gonna do this. This one's personality. Hi, Marcus. Hello, hello.
Wait, is it actually?
Creative. Welcome, welcome. Any rules as to when you break up a line? Guessing it's by feeling. Still wanted to ask. It's kind of because I don't lack the full confidence to make the line, in one go. So instead of like, you know, kind of slowing down, and because if I know I want this, you know, curve, but by the end I'm not like sure what angle I want to go at, I might end up like slowing down and it just kind of ends up looking like a little awkward, right? So I might end up kind of less purposefully, but more so just by kind of like an automatic instinct, I'll just like stop the line, then restart when I'm confident about what I'm putting down. It's not necessarily it's not necessarily like something I'm trying to do, just more so it happens, and I kind of just work with it. It ends up with line art that's not very helpful to color, but I'm trying to do it a little bit less often. So no rules. It's nice being able to just like answer questions on stream, because earlier this week I had a student email me who was from LCAD, and I feel like I scared him a little bit because I like wrote a very long response to what is a very simple question, but he asked me on a day where I was feeling like super like, I don't know, melancholic, so I gave him this like really long answer. I think it freaked him out, so now I'm like, okay, maybe I should only answer questions on stream, because at that point I can't talk for that long. When I write things, I like tend to think about them a lot more. I can like go back and edit, so my responses are just so like over the top, unnecessarily long. And then when I'm talking, it's like it's a little bit easier for me to be like, okay, I think I've said everything. Can't be as I guess eloquent or planned out, I guess. So it's just interesting. Like you'd think that it'd be easier to give advice or answer questions in an email, but I think I overdid it. I'd like to think it was a helpful answer, but I'm starting to like second guess myself. Like I don't know if it was actually helpful or if it was just like I don't know. It's like when you ask a teacher a question and they answer not the question you asked. And in fact you don't even know like how they got to that thing that you're talking about. And it's like with this though, it was like he I think he was asking about it was a very, and no disrespect, but it was a very like kind of base question of just how is it just time investment, or is there something else that you practiced or did to get to where you are? And like, I guess on a normal day I would have just said like, yes, it's both, you know. But I, for some reason, I felt really strongly about like sitting down and being like, okay, look, the way that you said this question, the way that you asked this, tells me that there's a misunderstanding of like really truly the base reasons that any of us like improve at all. And that at the like the way that someone would normally answer your questions, like, yes, time is both helpful, but time is also useless if you don't use it wisely. Studies are helpful and also simultaneously useless if you don't apply them properly. Like, I could give you so many answers that are concrete facts of just like, do this, follow this person, read this book, and yet none of it would ever be helpful to you in a like legitimate way if you didn't apply them properly. And so I went on this whole like tangent of trying to explain to him like why I think the reasoning behind the question is just like, or not so reasoning, just like I think the framing of the question approaches it from a kind of just not really comprehensive way. It comes from a perspective of just like, it's not how I'm doing it that's the problem, it's what I'm doing, and someone can tell me what to do to get better, right? But it's not, it's genuinely almost entirely how you do things is like more so than what you do. Because like, I could tell someone to do, you know, 10 studies every week and you know, like learn all the names and do all these things, and yet like they come out of it being unable to like actually like draw anatomy from imagination, and because like that's not the skill they were learning when they were doing the study and learning figure like anatomy names and whatnot. And it's like I felt really strong about explaining that to him, and now I'm worried like, did I like, I don't know, give him a crisis or something? Like, I don't know if that was a bad move. I'm not, but it's probably catching up my catching my fan. Oh wait, my little mini thing is not even up. Ah. Wait, do I? There she is. But she's at the wrong. Wait. She's at the wrong side. Oh, really? Well, I don't know. Is music going for anyone else? It could just be because it's soft. Let me turn it up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, you might have me turn down a lot because I don't really know how loud my voice is in context with the rest of the stream. She floating in midair, she is. Can I get her to move slightly lower? There we go. Oh, that's weird. I don't know. Hey, Santana. Welcome, welcome. Not very many. I'd say a lot of them are just kind of characters in general. Maybe like 20% might have been D&D characters, because I mean some of them don't literally say D&D, right? So maybe like 20-ish% were either just OCs that then became D&D characters or actually D&D characters. And some are just like, these are just like straight up OCs. And then made up, like, that was like the majority. fake character. Astolfo. Hey, Sunburns. Monday stream, was something that I'll be doing. Monday streams are something I'll be doing, this week and the next week, and then we will be going back to just Fridays. I mean, since I'm not, working a 9 to 5 right now, I can do extra Monday streams. Thank you. I totally relate to not being able to sleep, so I'm glad I can help. What to draw when you simply don't know what to draw and you know you must do something. If it's your kind of thing, you can try and do the prompt list stuff. I know since we're in fall, like all of them start to happen at once. So you can probably get like a prompt list for I don't know, an event that you like. You can also try, you know, thinking about projects that you've wanted to do that you didn't have time for beforehand, or maybe you have like a long-term goal that you want to achieve and take this time to kind of work towards that, whether that would be like recently I've been getting a lot more into the idea of actually DMing a campaign. So I've been doing a lot of like world building, mechanics research, like design stuff for like random things, just to like get an idea for like what I'd want to do aesthetically. And it's like a new thing I just recently started being interested in, so it's been a lot of like just like doing research into like the kind of game I'd want to make, maybe designing like, you know, some NPCs or whatever, but it's very much like not art related, not portfolio related. It's just sort of, I got interested, so now I'm kind of into it, you know. Yeah, I'm generally pretty excited actually, which I was very, it's very surprising for me. I don't consider myself a very good improver, but I like the research aspect. I'm really interested in learning different ways, different mechanics that tabletops have that you know, base DM, or not DM, base D&D has, you know, like I want to implement other things. Like I want to do clocks, the clock system. I might do like a memory based system, because I recently played a solo tabletop RPG called 1000 Year Vampire, which is really fun if you like vampires and you like history. You don't have to, you know, absolutely love history to play it, but it's a really cool, like, almost resource management, which is not the point of the game, but it's kind of a really cool, like, journey through the life of someone who is an immortal, right? And I really enjoyed, like, kind of thinking about things like memory and resources and items being like things that I can lose or gain and have to package up and sort in my head. And so I was thinking, like, you know, ways that I could try and make a campaign that implemented different mechanics and not just like the ones that you typically see in a D&D game. Because I do like D&D genuinely, but there's other things too where I think it'd be cool if you could redress like a mechanic from a different game and then put it into a D&D campaign. That'd be really cool. And also, like, you know, the idea, like, oh, should I do it Powered by the Apocalypse style, Dungeon World-esque, you know, or should I actually just do D&D proper? Because I've played a variety of those games, but I feel like mechanically I'm much more familiar with how D&D works behind the scenes versus the other ones. So a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Like, so, that's all to say, right? Try to think about things that you've wanted to do, but maybe not necessarily have had the time for, or even recent interests that, for you have been, like, a lot more exciting than whatever you've been drawing recently. Because I typically find that, when I think less about drawing things and more about, like, stuff I've been excited by, either in my recent life or things that I know that, I've been like, oh wow, I've never even thought about that. I am really interested in Blaze in the Dark. Blaze in the Dark has a really cool system. But, yeah, so basically what I'm saying is, you know, you don't have to draw in order to come up with ideas of what to draw. I'd say if there's like a show that you've really liked recently, or maybe even like a new hobby or an old hobby or an old show or old things that you've liked in the past that you're like, hey, I've always wanted to do a project about that, or I've always wanted to draw my character dressed in all of these clothes. There's a prompt list that I want to try out. You know, like, there are things that you can do that is sort of not dependent on you coming up with the idea, but kind of helps you spark ideas. I also find that in times where I, like, don't have a ton of ideas, it's not a bad thing to kind of just take a break from drawing and go find new ones, you know, like, spend a day looking through, like, organizing your Pinterest board. I find that when I'm organizing my, like, Pinterest collections, I come across, like, you know, pins and pictures that I hadn't seen before, or I have and I just forgot about, and it's like, oh cool, like, I didn't even know that, like, this was like a pin that I had saved a while ago to this one board, and now I kind of really want to work with it. Or I will sometimes like look at my old art and I'll see like characters that I've forgotten about, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to do that like one story with them, and I totally forgot about that, and maybe I should revamp this character, you know. I love redesigning my old OCs. It's so fun to compare it to like what I thought about in the past and what I think about now. So there's a lot of things you can do, or, you know, just don't do them and take a break and like spend some time really just collecting new ideas, gaining new inspirations. It's always fun to find new artists to follow and spend like, you know, a couple hours really just scrolling through everything. Or reading. Reading is also a great way to like put in more ideas than you were taking out. Reading, watching movies, that kind of stuff. So, you know, variety of things to do. Just depends on like what you're in the mood for. It's not easy to draw without any ideas. And I tend to not force myself to like just draw. I try to think about like, okay, how do I make this efficient for me, that so like I'm spending time drawing things that I either wanted to do in my free time or just like already kind of had an interest in like exploring at some point. Now's the time to really take another look at those things. How much time and many iterations one should give for a personal character design portfolio project per character? Depends, right? Like, I don't think you need to worry about quantity, more so quality. In my professional experience, like, quantity has not necessarily ever been the point. And there are days, or not days, but there are projects or assignments where I will deliver maybe about like 10 iterations max for a character, which then goes to 5 iterations per next round, right? And so it's like, that includes like outfit, direction, color. It can be 10 iterations, it could be 20, it could be, you know, I actually typically haven't done more than 20. Just because like, it's not really about, you know, like endurance to do a ton of iterations. It's more so how valuable is each iteration because you don't have that many slots, right? When you just make small changes to a design, you can rack up a ton of different iterations, but functionally they all look the same. If you squint your eyes, they just are the same shape, they're the same silhouette, same pose, same everything. It's not valuable. But when you limit the amount of iterations that you can do or have space for, have slots for, then you have to really consider like, okay, I'm trying to basically cover the possibilities and potential for this character. If I am here as the progenitor of this idea, I also have to be the person that like declares, here are all of the relevant iterations that I am physically capable of coming up with for this character. This is the breadth of who this character could be. These are all the different options for like if you were to give someone this premise, these are the different ways that they can exist. And that's kind of like however many different directions you think are worth showing, worth putting into your portfolio, that's however many you should do. I'd say that portfolios, you should show your other work, but the ones that should be given center stage should be the very particular ones you've picked out that you think these are the ones with potential, right? Even if some of them have more potential than others, the important thing is that each more finalized design that you have a page about should have more potential than the other iterations that you did. And then from one of those bigger potential designs, you take one and pull it to the finish, right? So however long that takes, it shouldn't take you ages, but if it's a portfolio project you have a little bit more time, I'd say don't try to claw your way to like, you know, 50 iterations if you really don't need that much. It's more important that the iterations that you put on the page are valuable, they're interesting, they have potential, and cut the ones that don't, right? Just straight up don't have any potential at all. And however that manifests and however much time and however much or how many there are is ultimately up to your creative abilities. Discovered you recently. I'm in love with your work. Thank you. Just wanted to ask about who do you think were your biggest influences to your art? So I'd say probably artists like J.C. Leyendecker, Gustav Klimt, I think it's with an S, Fav artists or something like that. So a lot of those have like more recent inspirations. For me, J.C. Leyendecker, Gustav Klimt, Alphonse Mucha. If we're talking about like super old inspirations, I'd probably also include like artists like Tai Kubo, because Bleach was such a big part of my life. Newer ones are in that list though, so you can take a look at those artists. Rafa Salagui? Hello, and welcome. I have a question about how someone who has an art-based brain but not the skill could learn a better way of doing art. As of right now, I've been doing a ton of gacha OCs, but the lack of looks bothers me. I don't know if I have a trick for you about doing art better if you don't have the skill for it, I guess. It seems like you're asking two different things though, because are you asking for design tips? Do you think your designs are boring? Are you asking for improvement tips because you want to get better at drawing? Or is getting better at drawing not a concern for you? Because lack of looks is a variety of things, and I don't know which one you're referring to. Are you struggling with anatomy? Are you struggling with, do you know any of your fundamentals? Did you just start drawing? Are you unfamiliar with any of those, or all of those, or none of those? I use guidelines when I need to, because guidelines, like all things, are tools. And me drawing in this style drawing in this way is not something I'm doing necessarily because it's like cool or because of any other reason like that. I'm drawing this way because there are certain things where guidelines are no longer functional or necessarily useful for me if I'm just kind of drawing things for myself, right? Because once you've learned a language, once you've learned how to read and write in something, do you need someone to give you a visual guide on how to write your letters? At some point it just becomes redundant to have it, right? It's not like you're purposefully not using a guide to write your letters. It's that at a certain point, drawing the letter is not the reason why you're writing. You're trying to describe other things, approach other concepts that are much bigger than just how do I write the letter. And so using it or not using it is not really the choice that's on the table, right? So the way that I draw is very dependent on me being comfortable with the things I'm drawing. If I'm not comfortable, I'm using guidelines just like you would expect, because I lack the comfort. I'm not going to approach it in this way. But if I'm drawing things that I'm very familiar with, like humans in clothes, then, you know, there's only so many times where I will slow down to use guidelines for things that if I could have just drawn them the first time, I wouldn't have to be exerting like extra effort, investing extra time to do a part of the process that is now no longer necessary. And this isn't necessary. This isn't even like a slight to guidelines. I just think the point of it is to at some point be a little bit redundant, I think. They're helpful always, but if you don't need the tool, if you don't need the guide, then you can make the executive choice to stop using the guide. It's more like a struggle of applying them, as the way I remember, I always seem to put too much pressure when drawing by hand and then struggle at making them seem alive with color and shading. Maybe I should go back to your first question. So, in general, this is a question about improving. Which, I will say, improving your ability to actually draw is very different from getting better at design. So, it might be helpful for you to figure out what are certain skills that you currently possess that are not able to support your ideas, right? What are you struggling to do that is preventing you from achieving the look that you want? Probably gonna be a lot of things, right? It's probably gonna be a mixture of the pose is stiff, the anatomy might be incorrect, your proportions are off. You might not have a good understanding of like the physics of cloth and how gravity affects things. You might not have a good understanding of overlapping shapes, how three-dimensional overlapping objects change or shift depending on a lot of other factors. How momentum will change things in three-dimensional, like, you know, spaces, and that's, you know, taking fundamentals and applying them to whatever you're trying to draw. And that is difficult to say, like, oh, here are just improvement tips, but I guess, like, I think the thing I can probably just say is you need to take a very critical look at what specifically you want to start tackling, because all of this is going to be a problem all the time. Like, this is all just, like, all of it is going to not be enough. All of it is just going to be, like, not what you want it to look like, not at a state where you are happy with how it looks, or you are proud or confident about it. So you're gonna just have to start tackling one thing at a time, right? If you notice that your characters feel stiff, you have to think about, okay, what makes a character stiff? I need to look at my anatomy, and I want to see, like, what part about it feels like, maybe it's my proportion, right? Maybe I draw my legs way too long, the head's too big, and so I need to, like, relearn basic proportion again. Or maybe I know my anatomy, but I don't know, like, how to pose things in a way that feels natural. So okay, let me do some more figure drawing and really practice and looking at people in more natural poses in ways that humans actually move. If you're worried about, because it seems like it's everything, right? You're talking about coloring, shading, you're probably talking about style, you're talking about design. Like all of these things are like 100 steps past application of fundamentals, because you have to slow down and really think about like, okay, I wanna be drawing like characters or whatever. Maybe you don't. And just drawing characters all the time is one way to force it, I guess. But you should, I think, take some steps back and think about what are you missing in your toolbox that's allowing you to achieve the look that you want. I assume you follow artists that you like, and if you compare and contrast your work from what they do, you might be able to start to see things that they seem to have an understanding of that you don't, right? Looking at how they approach proportion, looking at how they approach posing, how they approach stuff like line work, right? Line quality, how they approach sketching or drawing in general, their draftsmanship quality. And then you can start thinking about, okay, well then, I want to also get better at doing like, coloring and shading and stuff. Now that's a whole another question of like, okay, well I have to think about what fundamentals does this incorporate. Coloring and shading is about color theory, light and shadow, and that is just a whole nother set of fundamentals that you have to think about, learn about. None of this is something some improvement tips are going to change for you. This is what you're basically talking about is the whole journey, the rest of the journey of getting better at drawing, getting better at art. And the only way you're going to be tackling all of these things at once is to pick very specific things to start with. So you start small, you start with something that you can control, and then move through things as they come up. Like, oh, I want to get better at posing things now that I've studied anatomy. Or I want to get better at lighting things because, I can draw characters and have them be wearing clothes and have the lines all figured out. But color, I'm really struggling with picking a good color palette. I'm struggling with shading these things. Okay, let me learn a little bit more about, stuff about color, ambient light, reflective light, core shadows, mid-tones. How do you shade something that's a darker fabric next to a lighter fabric? And what does it mean to have, like, the rim light or the subsurface scattering? And, like, all those things you can learn very specifically at the time that you need to learn them, but you have to focus on the things that you currently are struggling with, which, if you can, make them as specific as possible. Start small, start with things that you can control, because this is the rest of the journey, is getting better at all of these things. And don't pressure yourself into thinking that you're gonna figure all of this out at once. You're not. And that's fine, because it's a lot of stuff to figure out. So take a deep breath, find one thing that you can focus on, work on, and move forward with that until you think, okay, I think I'm starting to understand this. I want to move on to something else. And then let yourself move forward from there. Because here's the thing about learning, right, is that inevitably you're gonna forget some of the things you've learned. You're going to spend a lot of time like studying this one thing, and then like in like a month you're just like forgotten everything about what you studied like earlier that year. And that's the push and pull of learning is like you can only really focus on the things that are really important to you. You can't possibly learn all of these different fundamentals and make them work all at once. it just means that this is basically what's gonna be gonna take up the rest of your life, is relearning things you've forgotten before, learning new information about things you hadn't yet studied, and then finding ways to apply that information to your work without losing bits and pieces that you know, you were studying beforehand, so you become a more efficient learner. I mean, I get asked like the same 5 questions every stream, so I explain it this way this time, but next time someone asks it, I might explain it in a different way, and it's kind of hard to say which way was more, you know, cohesive, a lot easier to understand. Anatomy and proportion is a good place to start for characters. And I'd say don't worry too much about teachers. Like, obviously, it sucks when a teacher tells you, you know, things that kind of, it feels like they are, either reaffirming insecurities that you have about your work, or maybe even just it feels like they are bullying you or something like that. I can assure you that teachers come and go. This teacher that's telling you whatever will not be here for the rest of your life. They will inevitably, you'll leave them behind. They will keep teaching, doing whatever they're doing. But you got the rest of your life to choose what you want to do with your work, with art. And whatever they tell you about, like, oh, you can't get a job doing this, or like, you should stop now because I don't think you're cut out for this, is like, you really just have to understand, like, yes, they're saying this to you now, but they will eventually just not be in your life anymore. So how much are you going to let the rest of your life be determined by someone who's not even gonna stick around? Logically thinking about your lines, you draw them, where you say you draw them on autopilot. Some of these lines are a little bit autopilot, just because, unless it's like major posing elements, stuff like clothing, I'm kind of doing it a little bit on autopilot, because other than like, okay, this is sort of a cylinder that wraps around the arm, but since it's armor, like, it's not gonna fully encase it, and then I can kind of logically figure out like what the shapes might look like. So clothing stuff might be a little bit on autopilot, but when it comes to like major decisions, I'm usually trying to be logical. None of these lines are being placed like haphazardly, though. That's the thing. Is like, I am thinking through these lines logically, but some of them just might not be as big of a question, big of a problem to solve. They just kind of are like, oh yeah, you know, given that the arm is in this angle, then these things should follow that logically. But some things, like, what am I gonna do with the rest of this body? I have no idea. I'll figure it out as I get there. Using something like Clip Studio Paint's 3D models be good to get good to get basics, or it might be better to just use reference programs. I mean, like, personally, I would say that a combination of both is not a bad idea. The thing about, like, I would not recommend using 3D models if you have no idea about anatomy, right? I would always recommend that you understand the fundamentals before you start using tools to help you with them, like 3D models. Mainly because 3D models might teach you bad habits because they're 3D models. There are a lot of shapes, things that 3D models posing feel really weird when they do them, and it's not until you look at a real human will you understand like how the limits of human posing, of human bodies. And so, you know, this is a little bit of a boomer thing for me to say, but I do recommend learning anatomy through reference first, freehanding it first. Not to say the 3D models are not useful, and I think they are useful in instances where like you can, you know, use them to help you with really weird perspectives. Because again, they are tools, right? They're meant to be used. But if you're still learning anatomy, you should learn it properly, fully, before you start using tools that are meant to make it easier. And I think freehand sketching them is, it's the challenging way to go about it, because you don't have a pre-existing form to work off of. And I think that challenge is going to help cement the facts about anatomy for you more than if, you know, you have like the book of answers kind of already there, which it's not even a complete book of answers, but it is essentially giving you a guide for proportion, which is something you should be able to feel by muscle memory, by eye. You should be able to judge that. The length of limbs, how limbs are placed, whether or not they're broken. It shouldn't be based on how far this 3D model can move. It should be based on your understanding of how bodies in general are posed. Knowing like proportion, knowing like muscle structures and stuff, like that should be things that you know the model doesn't have to help you with. And again, tools, right? Use them if you would like. I can't really stop you. But I think for the sake of having a full understanding of anatomy, it's good to do it by hand. Quote unquote. Whatever by hand means for you. Do you have any advice for practicing how to detail your characters in line art drawings? It's a hard balance for sure. I mean, you know, the biggest thing about line art is that it's really easy to get really lost in the weeds with all the detail that you're trying to put into it. And it can get really busy, so that's kind of more of a question of just like balance, learning what it means for a line art piece or just any piece to be balanced. And that comes from looking at how artists in the past or other artists tend to arrange details, right? Some artists love details, they put in everything, and some people really try to limit what kind of lines they put down and what kind of details they communicate, what pieces of it get lost as you know, move through different illustrations. So that's more of a personal choice. It's a very subjective choice because it ultimately depends on the look you're going for. And you can't really say what that is without accounting for the fact that you have your own personal taste that would probably differ from mine. But in terms of practicing it, I'd say, you know, when you start feeling, like, trust your gut feeling about this stuff. And it requires training, right? But it still is important to have kind of a gut instinct about it. If you start feeling like your stuff is getting too detailed, you're getting too in the weeds about like all of these lines being here and you're kind of feeling uncomfortable, it's feeling boring, it's getting arduous, like take a step back and really look at it and see like, is this necessary? Am I doing these, am making these choices because they're important for the drawing, or is it just because I'm noodling, I'm spending too much time in this area, I need to stop, or is this a habit that I have? Do I tend to over detail things? If so, then what things should I do in the future to stop myself and catch myself before this happens? You have to learn what bad habits you already started to put into practice, and you have to learn what kinds of things you can do in order to catch yourself before it happens. If not before it happens, while it's happening too. Because like, I'm someone who's very like, it's difficult for me to keep an eye on everything that's happening in a piece, so I tend to overdo it quite often. And the result of that is I tend to not zoom in as much as I used to anymore. If you notice some of my drawings that I do on this stream, I'm zoomed out, or I'm zoomed at a very specific size for a lot of it, because any detail that I don't necessarily need to see from this distance doesn't need to be drawn by me anymore. And I do that both for time and also just to stop myself, because I know that I will absolutely detail a line drawing to hell and back, and I don't need to, ever. It's never been necessary. So, personal taste, but, you know, look at your drawings, start taking away lines if you think it's getting too much, don't be afraid to erase. And look at artists that you think do a really good job with it, see how much detail, where do they put detail, what is it describing, does it help, what does it add to a piece that you keep one detail but lose the other, right? Those are questions you should be asking when you're looking at that kind of stuff. Paintel's has 2 out right now. How should one increase their visual library when you don't know much about anything other than the most popular medium? It requires an interest in knowing more. Like you say you live in a small town, so most of the stuff you know is from the internet, and I grew up very sheltered. I did not go out or leave my house after basically I'd go from my house to school, go from school back home, and I didn't leave my house pretty much until end of high school, when I actually went to a friend's house and started doing things. So like, I know what it's like to not leave your home very much, and so I don't personally have a lot of life experiences. I'm having more of them now that I am much more of an adult, but like you don't need to be someone with a life lived, really, in order to be interested and therefore motivated to learn more things. If you want to increase your visual library, you just need to be willing to put in the time to pursue that. Whether that means expanding the kind of people you watch online, right? Like, I spend a lot of my time nowadays watching historical like breakdowns of different periods of time. I'm passionate about fashion history, I'm passionate about anthropology in general, and so I'll spend most of my time watching videos about that kind of content. I'm passionate about, like, you know, social issues, so I'll watch video essays about people describing like current events that are happening in that area, or even just the philosophy and the history of that kind of a thing. You know, I'll watch videos about people breaking down actual media and improving my ability to like critically think about what a piece of media does for an industry, what are the implications of that, the craft of making different types of media. You can learn a lot from the internet, and I've learned pretty much everything I know from the internet. So, you know, I think it's more so just a question of like, you don't really have very many excuses in terms of like not having access to that kind of stuff, because if you have a basic internet connection, you have access to more information than pretty much anyone in like any other decade. You just need to want to learn those things. You can't help someone who just doesn't want to increase their visual library because they're disinterested in learning about the world, disinterested about learning all these things. If you are interested, then start demonstrating it by thinking critically about the things that you want to know more about, right? If you want to get into costume, it's good to actually study from costume designers. Watch videos that costume designers are interviewed in. Look at the costumes for films. Keep an eye out on what films get awards and stuff like that. Take a look at their costumes, see what it's all about. Look at costume construction. If you're passionate about fashion, learn about fashion history. Start learning about the impacts that fashion has had on society and how society has changed fashion. If you're passionate about armor, about weapons, about that kind of history, look at how armor is different, like how the construction of armor changes across different regional boundaries. What kinds of warfare would then change kind of the design of armor, the material, the make, the style, the ethics of a country will change how their history and their relationship with warfare will affect these things. And then, you know, also just getting a broader look at artists, studying more artists than the people that are the most popular on Instagram. If you're just following whoever is currently the hot topic of art Twitter or whatever, you're doing yourself a disservice. If the only artists you know are artists that you can find on Instagram or Twitter, you're doing yourself an absolute disservice. There are so many artists forgotten by history, forgotten by the popular media, forgotten by people in general that have their work saved, archived, painstakingly preserved, and they are out there that exist, but you just need to have the onus to find them, right? Use art gallery sites or, you know, follow channels that talk about artists that are often not talked about. Follow pages that post like historical fine art, or even ones that just kind of like someone has like a taste and they post about them, and then you can find a ton of new artists, new painters, new cartoonists, new illustrators that have such different styles, such different tastes. Get into a completely different website. I got onto Behance at one point and it was crazy. Like, I hadn't known how much I liked following graphic designers and people that did logos, branding, typography. Like, it was just like so cool to see this whole nother way of approaching art fundamentals. It was like advertising, they were doing like logo design, and it was like graphic, like page graphics and stuff like that, and the balance of how do you organize information on it. It was really cool. So I go on Behance occasionally just to get a totally different view of art in general, and like that is part of my visual library now. So you have the internet at your disposal. You kind of don't need a lot of other things when it comes to opening your visual library in an informational way, right? There's something to be said about someone whose visual library is expanded because of their life experiences, and that cannot be replaced. But for those of us who live either sheltered or very small lives because of where we live, we have to take advantage of the things that we have access to, and the internet is just the most like robust way that you can do that. So you have all the tools you need to increase your visual library. The biggest thing is that, do you actually want to, or are you content with the things that you know, with the things that you watch, with the things that you already engage with? Because if you are, there's nothing that I can say or anyone else can say that will encourage you to do so if you had not already tried to do it yourself. I don't really know about books, videos, or PDFs. Well, mainly because I don't use those. My understanding of character design is very much based on artists that I have either learned from, or from like in a class setting, or from kind of learning it by myself. Getting better at it by myself, judging my work critically. I don't really watch YouTube channels of artists. I tend to collect art books of like my favorite games or shows or movies, really. But other than that, it's a lot of personal, I guess, like aggregating my inspirations from elsewhere and trying to figure out design in a little bit more of a abstract way. I don't really use materials or resources, so if they do exist, I have no idea about them. How do you know that you've perfected anatomy? When you I don't think the point of it should ever be perfecting your knowledge of anatomy. I think it should be up until the point where it no longer is a concern for you. When you no longer have to think about when you look at your drawing and it's not something that stands out to you as being a problem. When you don't, in my mind, when you don't need references to make something feel organic and casual and natural, because you have such a refined understanding of how the human body works that even if you don't visually see an example of it, you have no problem of logically creating that in your mind, because you understand everything about the body, you understand how it moves, how it walks, how it talks, and when needing to, you know, come up with the body itself, like, it's not the act of being able to draw from imagination or the act of being able to draw with reference. It's what it feels like once it's been drawn, right? So the fact that someone can draw from imagination is not an indication that they have perfected quote-unquote anatomy. It is merely an indication that they have developed enough of a knowledge that they don't necessarily need to constantly be provided a guide for it. But perfection is a completely different thing. Perfection is absolute mastery over what is a very deep and potentially never-ending topic of expertise. So I would not personally worry about perfecting anatomy. Once you get to a stage where it is no longer of great concern to you, then by that point you're already worried about other stuff. By that point, anatomy has stopped being something that you necessarily worried about for the majority of your work. And you will probably, at that point, have moved on to much more complex and abstract problems. I'm using Psy because it's fun. I don't particularly have a reason for using Psy beyond the fact that it's a nice change of pace. But I have been using Photoshop because I've been back to painting a little bit, which has been fun. And I haven't been using Psy that much recently, except for doing commissions. I should make people pay more if they ask me to do a Final Fantasy character. My god.
Oh shit.
I wonder if Gary and his friends are playing Valorant. I hear gamer boy noises coming from there. Have you ever tried Clip Studio Paint and have any thoughts about it? I have. I own Clip Studio Paint. I think it's a very good program. I use it primarily for coloring things. Or flatting things. So I use it to base color and then I move it back into Photoshop or whatever. I don't enjoy drawing in it very much. Very rarely do I enjoy drawing in it. I just prefer to work in different programs. But not to say that the program itself is bad or not useful or not worth it. I think it's quite a good program for what it is, and obviously a lot of people have made it their main, but I am definitely not one of those people. And I have had Clip for many years, so I think it's safe to say that for now, I don't think the way that it feels is for me. What are you currently working on in terms of learning and perfecting? I'm trying to get better at visualizing things in 3 dimensions, so really feeling things that have, like, communicating the fact that things have solid mass, right? The fact that these are, like, real 3-dimensional objects, and they are physically here. Because you can draw something, but art is all about illusion, right? We have the ability to kind of make something work even if it really shouldn't. But I want to have a much better kind of 3-dimensional grasp on my stuff. And I want to have that level of, like, physicality to it. So I've been really grappling with making things feel as if they physically exist in the space, and kind of trying to be very purposeful about how I draw things and making sure that they have structure and stuff like that. Hey Tate! Welcome back. I don't watch anime anymore. And I'm not very fond of Genshin Impact either. In the beginning, what do you think took the longest to learn or understand in art? The three-dimensionality of things. I have always struggled with thinking about things in three-dimensional form. It was one of the main reasons why I kind of found myself trying to really like try to start drawing more purposefully, because I realized that in my mind, like my inability to understand anatomy, my lack of fundamentals, my all of that kind of stemmed from this unwillingness to think about things in three-dimensional form. I didn't want to think about the arm like a cylinder. I wanted to think about two lines that I drew, because all of my favorite animes and books and stuff, like all of those just had two lines, right? And legs were two lines, and the face was just like a triangle-ish shape. And I wanted to think about it like that. But then as I, grew up and I started having different tastes, and I started really appreciating like fine art a little bit more, I realized I don't want that to be the extent of my knowledge. Like, I don't want to just be able to, or not be able to, like, think about things three-dimensionally, because all of my favorite art was starting to become far more three-dimensional. And even my favorite anime art at the time, like even my favorite Japanese artists were incredible artists who knew three-dimensionality very well, but they chose to stylize things. I didn't understand it from that perspective. I thought style just superseded all fundamentals. But you need to understand good fundamentals to be able to stylize something responsibly. And I was looking at it from the perspective of, okay, so this person does like, these lines for the face, and they use this is how they draw the nose, it's like a dot or whatever, and like this is how they draw arms, this is how, and it's just like follow the line. But that's not it, right? I'm not connecting the dots. Like, the reason why they choose to draw the nose or not, the reason why they would choose to draw the face that way, or show proportions that way, those were all very specific choices that they made for, style reasons. They chose that because that's what they saw as being beautiful, or that was their idea of, this is how much detail I want to show on this character. The reason why a lot of anime characters have two lines and that's the arm or that's the leg is not necessarily like because that's how you draw them. It's because they're implying far more. They're implying three-dimensionality without having to give you all the detail, because it's animation. It can't be that complicated. But I didn't see it that way, right? So it took me the longest time to understand that three-dimensionality was something that I had to really think about and focus on. And it wasn't until like a couple of years ago that I realized how deep I misunderstood three-dimensionality, how little I cared about it, and how much my art suffered for it. And this is after knowing that it's been a problem for years. Right? I knew this was like my problem from the very start, but I haven't been working on it because I wanted to not think about the fact that this was a core misunderstanding of mine, that I didn't understand this fundamental at all. And I was thinking that I could just get away with it, right? I knew how to draw like this other artist, or I knew how to make lines that looked good because another artist made those lines look good, and I could do the same. It wasn't until I realized that I had to take responsibility for my own failings and flaws as an artist, and the flaws in my understanding of fundamentals. And it wasn't until I did that I could then start taking responsibility for the lines that I did put down, what I was trying to describe, the things that I wanted to convey. Because as an artist, I reached the understanding that mastery is not the result of, time, or even necessarily like skills learned, but more so, mastery is demonstrated through, again, like, just a complete and total control, even over the happy accidents, even over the parts of art that are very, like, kind of unintentional, right? When it is purposeful, when you put down lines that you are in total control over, when you absolutely know what shapes you're trying to describe, when you know the end result, or when you understand what you're trying to reach, true mastery is the demonstration of absolute control over even the things that are unintentional, right? It takes a good artist to know how to re-implement a design or re-implement a mistake that was not supposed to be there. But to reincorporate that is someone who understands how to shift their plan, how to flex in order to make that not a problem. And so I wasn't able to do that for the longest time because I was unable to see art as something that could change. I thought if I learned how to draw a face like this artist, and I learned how to, make lines like this artist, put them together, I could basically be the culmination of all of these different styles and people, and I would know how to draw better. But finding better artists to grift off of does not an artist make. And I realized that kind of in high school, that like my total lack of fundamental, like, this kind of like lack of fundamental understanding was going to fail me faster than I was expecting. So what was the first problem in my life remains the biggest problem in my art. Is there any way you can view finished commissions? Finished commissions are posted on the Discord. Otherwise, these are sent straight to the commissioner and are not posted anywhere by me. I don't think those two should be conflated. AI and 3D art are very much not the same thing. And I will not speak about AI art because fundamentally I don't think it adds anything to my life. To be thinking about it, really. Because none of my work has anything to do with it. So I'm not gonna worry about AI art. I'm gonna focus on my shit. Whatever. 3D art is 3D art. It's not lesser than, it's not going to supersede it. It's what it is. It's nothing more than that. Why do you use different pencils for line art as the same one? I use the same, well, if it's in Psy, it's the same stuff. It's the same brush. Photoshop, I sometimes change it depending on my mood if I feel like trying something different. There is a public Discord. I tend to just, do one, like, highlight thing that separates the rest of the... or up here. I just wanted to put, like, big highlights, I guess. But that's it. To be fair, I don't really advertise it much because it primarily is just to get a notification when I go live. I'm not much of a Discord person. I'm not even online on Discord most of the time. So it's mainly for people to keep up with streams. Thank you. Submission on this girl and guy. Feel free to mess poses. Okay. Oh. Kojo, we will need an updated link on Rose's request. Oh, and for a Timmy's request. I'm not surprised that these links are broken. top 3 are broken, except up until Sezen's. Ah, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. So yeah, we need all of these need to be fixed. 2 people combined. Ref included for inspiration, but okay. Why the shift to paint tool Psy? Just for fun. Just because I like how Psy feels to draw in.
You guys are in love with material change.
It's delicious. It's so much better than the other one.
I am not. And my fan might be triggering the little avatar to jump, but I'm not talking. Yeah, it's just dancing. say this once, I say this 10,000 times. I hate drawing hair on men. I don't know what kind of curse I've been put under where I can't stand drawing fluffy hairstyles, but this is torture. This actually, I can't do it. It's so, it feels different every time I draw it, and it's not even like that crazy of a style. It's like, so they're all the same, they all look the same, and it's like, for some reason, fluffy hairstyles on men is just like impossible for me to recreate. I see the hairstyle on the reference, it's very clear, it's very succinct, and yet I cannot replicate it for the life of me. Okay, cool. I will start on that one then. Thank you, thank you.
There's a wall here. I thought, okay, so like,
Oh, what's up? Yeah, no, you should go to the emergency room. You should go to the emergency room. Don't fuck with any kind of chest stuff. Like, I'm not gonna like talk about it just because it's Gary's personal information, but like he had a chest thing. You should get that checked out regardless. Chest stuff, do not fuck with chest stuff. Even if it's just like your muscle is sore, it'd be good to go anyway. Cause like, Gary had something where his chest hurt and he wasn't sure if it was related to something else that was going on at the same time. It wasn't. It was a completely different thing. So, you never know when that stuff is not what you expect or can explain. Have you gotten a physical lately? No, I mean, you should, yeah. You should get a physical and just say like, hey, I have this muscle soreness. What's this about? Or I have what I think is muscle soreness. Welcome, Rose. Get up and stretch. You might have a... I don't know what your provider is. I don't know who your provider is, but sometimes they'll have a number that you can call to set up for appointments. Kaiser's got like a whole website for it, so you could probably go on their website, find like whoever they have as your like primary provider, or like maybe even Kaiser's got it really like formulated. You could honestly, I think, if you go to like, if you have a Kaiser building near you, you might be able to just like go in. But you can also like talk to someone. I had Kaiser for a bit too, and I was able to kind of just talk to someone about like, you know, it's a general nurse who you can answer, who can answer questions like, you know, should I go into the doctor if I have this, this, and this? They'll probably say yes anyway. But yeah. Hey, Zelos. I'm doing good. How are you? Wait, Chishin is done? Oh, I have like no recollection of that. Let me double check and make sure that that is the case. Sort by name. Oh! Yes, okay, yes. No, I do have that now. Okay. Okay, yeah. Got that. Sounds good. Yeah, because I was checking, I'm like, okay, one... I don't know what, Chishin is, but, yes, no, I have 3 done for you. We're good. Okay, cool. Nice arms. Yes. I had to get really good at drawing, like, muscular arms recently. Now I can't go back. Yes, indeed. stream around like 10-ish, mainly because I haven't eaten yet, and I don't want to get it to get too late before me and Gary can no longer order food. So I'll probably end around 10 to 10:30, depending on where we are at 10. So we might not be able to get to painting today, but I can at least show you guys what I've been painting, which is the continuation of the my Knight Paladin OC thing that you guys saw last week. I can show you where that has gone because it's progressed quite a bit since then, and you guys can see that. Yeah, Titania. I've been working on it the past couple days.
Where did he go?
Oh, he went to deliver letters and presents to other families.
Father Christmas brings presents, doesn't he?
He does, boy, but the postman brings presents to people who live far away, like Uncle Dad.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think it was last stream, right? I did it a little bit of a kind of sketching thing in the very beginning of stream, and so you can see where that was. And
Sleep tonight.
Much better.
Go to bed. I'm staying awake until Father Christmas comes, so I can see him.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Why do you think he uses reindeer? It was on the afternoon of Christmas Eve, and I was in Mrs. Prothero's garden, waiting for cats with her son Jim. It was snowing. It was always snowing at Christmas. December, in my memory, is white as flat land, although there were no reindeer. Cats at the word.
Where did he go?
Oh, he went to deliver letters and presents to other families.
Father Christmas brings presents, doesn't he?
He does, boy, but the
oh,
postman
good night, Rose.
brings presents to people who live
Thank
far
you for
away,
making
like
it.
Will Father Christmas be able to get here in such heavy rain?
It's cool. It's always nice when you find a place with like really authentic food. seems like their game of Valorant is getting very, very hype. Yeah, I wonder if she's in his room. She's been walking in and out of our rooms all day. Okay, there's swept back. Okay, what does dono wall mean? Because I have been hearing it a lot, and I don't know what people mean when they say it. Oh, is it like attention being only given if you donate? I see. I see. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of my friends who are VTubers using it, and I'm like, I can only assume what it means, but you guys have weird terminology. Potentially. I don't know if I've seen the one you're specifically talking to or talking about, but it does sound familiar. No, this is someone's OC. I do any kind of like mechanical thing, I always try to think about it from the perspective of organic anatomy. So, everything has to separate at the joints. So at the joints, I need to be able to think about how the, different parts of it will move and rotate depending on, the level of rotation. So joints are important. Everything outside of the joints are much more about hard plate. It's very much more akin to designing armor in my mind, because I can say like, okay, well, the I'd say also just like the fundamental of being able to observe how fabric changes depending on the pose, depending on the type of fabric, right? All these things that you see in your references, if you look at fabric and clothes, it's all extremely different. Every example of this changes, someone moves even a little bit, the fabric moves, so being able to observe why things are shaped the way they are, you know, why is a certain pattern far more common when cloth is folded one way versus the other? What is the commonality of fabric folds in different types of fabrics like wool and whatnot? How do they differ from silk, and how do they differ from like taffeta and all these different other kinds of fabrics? So being able to observe those differences and implement them into your own work is going to be very helpful, because fabric is extremely, again, like mercurial. It changes quite a bit. But yeah, I think that's what I'll say for that question.
We have a site. Hello?
My favorite music artist? I have a lot of different music tastes. So it's really hard for me to say there's someone that I really like. Because I tend to not like someone's entire discography. I tend to just like one song and then that's it. So I'll listen to everything from like top 100 billboards to anime song, to Vocaloid, to K-pop, to musicals, to country, to metal, to rock. I listen to like all that kind of stuff. To escape. She's had enough. So I can show you guys the painting I was doing, but we will probably end the stream around here because I'm starting to get a headache. And I'm gonna probably drink more water and chill for a bit. Here, let me just show you guys what I was working on before. And I will drink water as well. But yeah, so if you were here last stream, you'll have seen me do this, painting. And, it's of my character Titania. And we've definitely, gone some places. It's a lot more detailed than before, so I can show you where it was before this. We just get rid of these. So like this was basically like where it was, I think. And I was asking you guys to help me figure out like a bunch of different compositions, and ultimately I ended up just really liking this one, which was kind of the original idea. So then I added a little bit of noise grain, just to give it some texture, because I knew I wanted to go for more of an oil painting look. So we started with some more basic, just like rendering. I started doing like the pauldron, the face, got an update, so a lot more well refined. Same with the background and the bottom of the cape as well got refined. And then I think all of these layers are, yeah, just like more refining layers, which I could probably merge down. Decided to have the sword tip up, probably. So I'm gonna be doing this whole sword at some point, but yeah. Details for the pauldron. The lattice in the back. Yeah, this is just to keep the walls kind of like smoother. And then I am not settled on this design for the walls, but I did want to do painted walls, or at least some kind of tiling, so I'm gonna figure that out at some point, see what we end up wanting to do with that. And yeah, so basically just a little bit more refining in places. Don't know what this is all about, but this can go. And this is where it's at right now. So yeah, I might work on this a little bit more during the week or something like that. I might do it next week. Not next week, next stream, which will be on Wednesday. So if you want to come to an earlier stream, Wednesday stream will be at 1 to about 4. So feel free to come by and hang out with us if you'd like. But yeah, so this is kind of where this is at. On Wednesday, we'll probably still continue doing charity commissions if I don't decide to just kind of like finish this. I want to take my time on this one, so this one will probably be like a slow burn finish. But yeah, so I'm gonna end the stream here because I'm kind of tired. But thank you everyone for coming by. Sorry we didn't get to painting, but maybe we'll get to painting on Wednesday. So if you want to come, Wednesday will be, as I said before, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific Coast time. And if you can't make it to that, we will have another normal stream on Friday at 7 p.m. again. So 2 more days this week of streaming, and then next week we'll also have the same schedule of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe. So anytime if you guys can come and drop by again, I'd love to have you. But otherwise, thank you for coming by. Thank you for sticking around, asking questions. As always, I'm very, very appreciative that you guys stick around and talk in chat and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, until tomorrow, not tomorrow, until next stream, whenever I see you again, I hope you guys have a good week. I hope your days are peaceful, and I will see you all the next time you decide to drop by. And thank you again. Hope you all have a lovely, lovely evening or day, depending on what time zone you're in, and I'll talk to you all later.